Thank you. Next is William Dorsett. You'll have 1 minute to speak on item 64.
Um, so the so the item 64 is got a lot of good language in it, but it still needs work. There are a lot of things in there that are kind of vague. You know, promise stuff for the mom and pop handcrafters, yet wrote them out in it. And then furthermore, you might want to relook at things as far as the no vending zones go, because recently LA City Council has decided to amend their ordinance because the ordinance itself with no vending actually violates SB 946. And so they have to go back and amend the whole thing. And so y'all might want to relook at things a little bit longer and do the things that you talked about and promised. Thank you.
Thank you. I've started the 5-minute timer here in chambers, and we'll go to those participating virtually.
For Moreno.
Thank you. I have comments on item 64, the municipal code amendment to address concerns with sidewalk vending and expressive activity. I didn't get an opportunity to speak on this item during our last meeting because it was, while it was being discussed, I, along with Council President Elo Rivera, was assisting the flood victims that came to address the City Council at that meeting. I have concerns about the effects these amendments will have on street vendors. When the original vending ordinance was approved, there was assurance that vendors would be eased into the new regulations. We were assured that the city would, of course, issue a warning to a vendor that was out of compliance and give them a chance to fix the problem. This was supposed to be a situation where staff tried to help vendors comply, not a situation where enforcement officers immediately issued fines. These amendments remove the initial warning and replace it with a $100 fine for permanent vendors and $250 for unpermitted vendors. And the amendment allows for the immediate impound of a vendor's equipment or goods for some infractions. I have many constituents who begin their small businesses as street vendors, and I can tell you that when people are starting out in a new business, sometimes they make mistakes. Many are new Americans who may not understand the intricacies of the city's policy, and hitting them with the fine before they get a warning is not fair. And impounding their equipment, that is a particularly difficult thing for me to deal with. On top of taking someone's livelihood away, they will also have to navigate the city's bureaucracy to get their equipment back. I can guarantee that this will be very confusing for many folks and will cost time and money to some vendors who simply cannot afford it. A few of the reasons equipment could be impounded include leaving vending equipment or goods unattended, vending prohibited goods, vending without a valid vending permit, vending food without a valid and displayed county environmental health permit. These are all valid reasons to issue warnings to vendors, but I don't think impounding their equipment is warranted unless the problem is happening over and over after warnings and fines have been issued. In some instances, we're going to see small business owners just trying to make a living get hit with fines and potentially have their equipment impounded. That just sounds horrible to me. And finally, in an upcoming budget year where there will be a sizable deficit, the staff report says, and I quote, "The cost to administer amendments has not yet been determined. City staff is currently determining the cost associated with the implementation." We've already spent too much money on street vendor enforcement, and now perhaps we may be spending more on draconian enforcement measures in a challenging budget environment. In the memo that Mayor released on February 22nd, he outlined actions being put into effect to address the mid-year budget imbalance and put us in a better position going into fiscal year 25, including suspension of non-essential expenditures. In line with this effort, I would urge the mayor to take steps to decrease the money we spend on street vendor enforcement for the remainder of fiscal year 24 and in our budget in fiscal year 25 so that we could use taxpayer dollars to invest in critical infrastructure improvements in underserved communities that have been ignored for decades, like storm channels. So I will be recording a no vote on item 50 and 64 and supporting the balance of the consent. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilmember Moreno.
Next, I would like to speak just for a moment on item 64. I'm afraid my colleague missed the presentation about the amendments to the ordinance, and she has misrepresented what it was about. The idea is to provide entrepreneurial avenues for people to get into business, but at the same time to protect public spaces and health and safety here in San Diego from rogue vendors. Over 500 vendors have been licensed and permitted. They know all the rules. They took classes, and classes are still available for those who wish to get into that business. The problem was only a very few but criminal elements who were beating up on and violently attacking other vendors who were not following the rules and who were trying to get other vendors out of business so that they could monopolize it. The other thing was that we needed to provide more information about free speech so that the people who are artists and free speech people would be assured that they would have the ability to practice the First Amendment. Therefore, the amendments were passed unanimously by those council members who were present, and I request that you come and speak to our office if you have any more questions about it. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilmember Campbell. I will first note, again, we have a motion put forward by Councilmember Campillo, seconded by Councilmember. Did have the opportunity, though, to item 64 when it was first heard, working with Councilmember Moreno to assist flood victims who were in need of housing assistance. Had a chance to review the materials prior to that meeting, though, and I, too, will be respectfully voting no on item 64. Won't debate the item here as it's here for a second reading, but I, too, have some issues with some of the amendments as they're put forward. So with that, I see no additional requests to speak to the consent agenda. Clerk, please call the roll.
John Phillips and then Dave Engel.
Hello, council members. So y'all have kind of helped with the First Amendment stuff, but there's still, like I said earlier, some issues. One of the issues is the space restrictions that y'all put in the new code. You can't put free speech in a one-size-fit-all box. It's not going to work. You're going to have all kinds of opposition from religious leaders, from activist groups, from various expressive activities that won't fit in a 4x8 space. So y'all need to relook at that pretty heavily. The second thing I want to go over is park rangers. Park rangers don't seem to have any oversight. They don't seem to have any accountability. They don't seem to have body cameras. When you ask them a question, they will lie to you and tell you something that's not true. When you bring it to the attention of the supervisors in the Parks and Rec office, they will cover their park rangers and they will lie and say that their park rangers did everything that was appropriately right. Yet park rangers have violated right after right after right after right over the last couple of years since y'all passed the sidewalk ordinance. They continue to violate rights within the last week or so. They continue to lie to people that they think don't understand or know their rights, and they abuse their powers as park rangers, and yet no accountability. Something needs to be done about that. It's not right that they can treat people and bully people the way that they do. They have way too much power for what they're doing, and like I said, something needs to be done. Anyways, thank you for your time. Thank you for listening. Hope y'all have a great day.